Yo, what's good, YouTube? It's your boy Nehemiah, aka Neo, and today we're going to be talking about the top 5 seeds in the Eastern Conference this time. I already talked about the West a couple videos earlier. Getting to the Eastern Conference, I think that there's a lot more teams that can actually compete for the top 5 seeds. As you see here, I have at least 7 teams up. Actually, I think it's 8. I have 8. And I want to get rid of some of these guys quicker. So let's just get straight into it. The reason why I have the Chicago Bulls this low and why I don't think that they're going to make it is simply because I don't think that they're going to be as consistent as they were. Let me actually pull their season up last year. They did suffer from a lot from injury and not just injury, but COVID too. Lonzo Ball was a big proponent of this, and while he was really good for them this year, do not get me wrong, I do not think that he will be as good as he was before the injury. There are a lot of things that are troubling with it. It was supposed to be an 8-week injury. He decided to take off the whole season, and we still haven't had that much good updates about it. Alex Caruso was another guy who essentially did get a lot of injuries and all that stuff. And let's be real, the Grayson Allen injury was honestly a really big sideline for him because he shouldn't have gotten that injury. That was completely on Grayson, I will not lie. But regardless of that, I think that he still just have some health struggles even with the playoffs. DeMar DeRozan, the biggest thing about DeMar is can he keep this up, and I don't think he will. And I think that's pretty much it for the Chicago Bulls. I think that Vooch is not good enough. I think that Zach LaVine, he is good enough actually, but I just don't expect him to be as good this year. I expect his numbers to be a little bit down, not like crazy, but just a little bit. And Brooklyn Nets, another thing for them, I've already hinted at this multiple times. I think that they're probably going to be more of a 6th, 7th seed. I think that the problem with this team is more so that I don't really have expectations for them, mostly because a guy like Kyrie Irving is honestly spontaneous. Same with Ben Simmons. Kevin Durant is not really a random player, but I would say that he does have a lot of random injuries, excuse me. Looking at it from the Basketball Reference, these last 3 seasons have just been horrible seasons when it comes to injuries, especially if we consider Golden State, where he had the Achilles and the weird calf injury. I don't really expect him to be playing that much. And even if he is, I just don't think that even if he does, I'm not sure how much these guys play. And that could just play a big factor. And while they were really good for a majority of the last season when Kevin Durant was playing, I'm pretty sure they were really bad against 500 competition without that. So I expect that to maybe be a little bit better this year, but I don't expect it to be the best. Now, the reason why the Atlanta Hawks are this low is actually... Let me do this. I do actually have a little bit more expectations for the Atlanta Hawks in the regular season than the Miami Heat. Simply put, I think that the reason why the Miami Heat didn't do as well as they would in regular seasons, something like the previous season, is simply because they didn't have as healthy of a roster, but they still were the 1st seed. The reason why I think that they're going to take a little bit of a step down is simply, or let me not say simply, is because a team like the Atlanta Hawks has a lot more to offer. A team like the Cavaliers has a lot more to offer now. Boston, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia were all teams that also suffered from a lot of injuries, especially early on. And a team like the Celtics, after the January mark, they were essentially the best team in the East, and it wasn't really close. The Milwaukee Bucks, they were kind of coasting. And I think that they really did give up the 2nd seed, but I think that if they really wanted to, they probably could have been the 1st seed. Same thing could have been said with Philadelphia, but who knows? I think that the reason why the Miami Heat are just going to drop is mostly because we have another year of not Duncan Robinson. Where is he? Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry was not good last year. We just need to stop saying that he was. He was usable in the regular season. And credit to where credit is due, he was playing a lot in the playoffs. But when he was playing, he was not good. I'm sorry. And it's mostly because he was just injured. And that's fair, but, you know, he's going to have another year on his belt. He's going to be what? It's probably going to be 37, actually. Never mind. A guy like... They have high expectations in this guy because he has to be the 4 next year. Him or one of these other guys. I want to talk about Victor Oladipo a little bit, though. I think that he's actually going to be a really good player. But I don't think that the fit on this roster is really good. I don't really like his fit on the roster simply because I need to stop saying simply. I'm so sorry. But a guy like Jimmy Butler, a guy like Bam. I was thinking of Jam because Jimmy and Bam. I don't know what was on my mind. But these guys aren't really shooters. And if I'm not mistaken, Victor Oladipo's shooting percentage is starting to go down, and it's not really looking that good. So I think I just don't have that much faith in this team to kind of carry through that regular season like they did last year. So I think that's the reason why I have Atlanta at 5. Atlanta at 5 is just a much safer pick in my opinion. They are always a better second half team. They were able to come back into the playoffs from the second half, and it was actually kind of crazy. They were a 500 team after. Let me look at their last season because I think right here. Yeah, they were not close to 500 at this point. Then they went on a really good winning streak in January 17th. That was actually around the same place where the Boston Celtics just kind of took off. I expected something similar to that. However, one thing that I do expect from this team going forward is that they're not going to start nearly as bad. I think that they're probably going to start, I think, somewhere closer to 14-10, and then they're going to take off the brakes going into January, February, something closer to that. I just have a lot more expectations than this team. So, not because they don't have the perimeter creation, but more so because I just think that the defense is going to look a lot better. I think that the defense with DeJounte Murray, maybe Onyeka Okongwu gets a bigger role. I think that could be a really good start for a team like this. Maybe even John Collins takes a good leap. Justin Holiday is also a solid defender. I just think that this team just has a lot more upside than the Miami Heat for getting this spot. I think that they also have a better floor because, as we've seen, Trae Young is just that guy. Yeah, he had that really bad playoff run last year, but I don't expect him to really get clamped up like that against any other team besides Miami and maybe Toronto. Besides that, I think that this team just has a lot of stuff going forward for it. You even have a guy like Aaron Holiday, who's also a really solid defender. But again, I do expect this team to at least have another trade going into the trade deadline, because I really want them to fix up the center spot if Onyeka Okongwu is not who they're going for. Now, these four, I don't know like the order that I want them to go. I will say Milwaukee is probably not going to be my first seed or maybe even second seed. Looking at their last couple of years, they just haven't had that type of success recently, and it's more so because of us. It's more so because of health than anything. Look at this roster, man. Like they also went through a lot of trades in the offseason or in the middle of the season. A guy like DeAndre Bembry, they actually signed him off of Flyers. Same with Javon Carter. I think that they were just trying a lot more new stuff. I think they're going to try a lot more new stuff this year too. Same with this. This season they essentially did the same thing. While the roster wasn't nearly as big, they actually did go for a lot of midseason trades. They also did go for a lot of more roles as the year went on, and I think that's going to be something that we're going to be more akin to this season. Just looking for a lot of more experimental Bucks, and I think that's the reason why they're probably going to be on the lower end. That's also another reason why I don't really think that Giannis is going to be the MVP. But let's just get on to who I think is probably going to be the fourth seed out of all of these guys. It's probably going to be Cleveland. The reason why I think it's probably going to be Cleveland instead of a team like the Philadelphia 76ers or the Boston Celtics is that this team has historically had some really bad injury luck. Not even just this season that they've been in. The last two seasons have been horrible injury seasons. They've just not been the best at all. And if I'm not mistaken, they were really good up to this point. But the reason why they kind of just sunk, around this time, Darius Garland and Sexton got injured. Around this time, they got injured for like a couple of weeks. Not only that, but Larry Nance was also a really good defender at this time. He was really just leading the all defense kind of stuff. But he essentially got injured around this time too. All three of them went down in like the next couple of weeks, and it was looking really, really bad for them. And that's kind of the reason why they tanked this year. That being said, they did get Mobley out of it, so it's not the best, or it's not the worst. So that's really good. But again, I think that this team also had really bad injury luck this year too, because right around here, Jarrett Allen got injured. If I'm not mistaken, it was I think it was in March. It was around here. And this team really needs Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley to have like a really good defense. More so Evan Mobley than Jarrett Allen, but or no, the other way around. Jarrett Allen is a better defender right now, but I think Evan Mobley does have a higher peak. But I think that those two, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Milwaukee Bucks, I don't have the best faith in them being a number one, but I do think that if ways work out well, if the Milwaukee Bucks take the regular season a lot more serious than they have in the last 2 years, if the Cleveland Cavaliers have a lot more injury luck going into their way, into their favor, excuse me, give me them. I think that they're probably going to be like top 3 seeds, but again, I just don't have that much faith into the injury bug with them and just how serious that they're taking it. I think that the Boston Celtics and Philadelphia are kind of tied for me. But I think that the Philadelphia 76ers, if James Harden is just as good as we think he's going to be, or not just saying as good as we think, as good as he's going to be, I think that's going to be a really big change. Looking at this, we could also just still see that they kind of had the same thing that they had the same thing that the Boston Celtics did, except they had it a little bit earlier. Looking at like the Boston Celtics, they only had like what? They had a back-to-back loss? I didn't know that. Oh, wait. That's playoffs. No, that's not. Never mind. But again, they really just don't have that much going forward for them in terms of how bad they're going to be. I think that the Boston Celtics just have a lot of guys on the roster that I think that they could just carry, you know? A guy like Malcolm Brogdon, a guy like Jaylen Brown. Well, let me not say Jaylen Brown, but a guy like Malcolm Brogdon has a better handle than Jaylen Brown, and he's able to get to the paint better. I think a guy like Jason Tatum is probably going to get a lot more of his playmaking load off of a guy like Malcolm Brogdon. He's probably not going to be a better playmaker, but I do think that Jason Tatum is probably going to focus a little bit more on scoring, focus a little bit more on his own path. I think that's kind of the reason why they did take the L in the finals. At least most of it. They did guard Tatum well in terms of him making the best decision after the first game, but I think Malcolm Brogdon is probably just going to be able to ease Jason Tatum into being the elite playmaker that we think he could be. But I think the reason why I have Philadelphia ahead is simply because they have a guy like Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is probably the tiebreaker in this kind of case scenario. Even if James Harden is not as good as we think he's going to be, Joel Embiid is just him. And we've just seen, as long as he's healthy, they're a top 3 seed. As long as he's healthy. It doesn't have to be anything super crazy. It doesn't have to be they're facing like these bottom feed teams. Not. As long as he's healthy, these guys are dominating. Let's look back at this last season. The reason why they had this L streak isn't because they didn't have enough. They had that L streak because Joel Embiid had COVID for 3 weeks. If he didn't have COVID for 3 weeks, there's a good chance that he's the MVP of the season and they're like the first or second seed, which could kind of just mess up a lot of things in the East, which could be a what if scenario. But I don't really have that type of patience with me. But looking at it like this, after Joel Embiid got back from COVID from around like this range, he had it around this time. Yeah, he missed like a lot of time, but he got back around this time. And look at it. Even without James Harden, they were just dominating the regular season. So I expect something similar to happen, except if Joel Embiid just does not have COVID, they're probably just gonna roll through the East. And while I will say that the East did get better, there's still a good chance that these guys are still just gonna be as good, if not a little bit better, because of the offseason acquisitions and Tyrese Maxey just being better, and James Harden just maybe getting a little bit healthy, and them having actually no, they traded away Seth Curry, my fault. But looking at it, these guys are just they just have what it takes to be the first seed. And I think that's my pick for the MVP, Joel Embiid, and I think that they just have like enough on the roster to at least contend with Boston from season to season, and for them to at least be in the top 2 seed, in my opinion, just being the first seed. A guy like Joel Embiid is just gonna carry them through a lot of wins. So yeah, that's it. It's been your boy Nehemiah, aka Neo. I hope you guys are having a great one. I hope you guys tell me what you guys are, where your top 5 seeds are. So yeah.